housekeeping before we see if anybody else jumps on. So you will see on the right-hand side of your screen, there is actually a chat option that you'll be able to use. So we are going to be able to see your questions that come through if you send them to all panelists. But if you want to converse with all panelists and attendees, you do have that option as well. We also want to assure you too that you are muted and your video is off. So you don't have to worry if you have a sneeze attack or a baby crying in the background or a dog barking. We're still going to continue on as we are because this is quarantine life. All right. Do you think we should go ahead and get started?
Sure.
All right. We'll see if anybody else hops on. But number one, hello and welcome to Brook USA's Project Insight series. We're really happy to have you here with us, especially since today is #GivingTuesday now. So today is actually a day of global giving and unity, and by you being here, you are proving that in times of uncertainty, generosity and unity for a cause can bring the whole world together. I'm Kendall Beer. I am Brook USA Donor Relations Officer, and you're joining us today for Project Insight Series number 3 with Fred Ochieng from Brook East Africa. I'll go in a little bit more about Fred in a little bit, but I just want to introduce some of the faces that are here on the webinar today. So you'll see the beautiful blonde, that is Amanda.
Oh.
So she is actually our major gifts officer for Brook USA. We also have Bobby, who is, I believe, in the screen right below me. But Bobby doesn't actually make his face known very often because he does a lot of the behind the scenes. He is our finance and administration officer. So he does a lot in the background, and we're really excited to have him as part of the webinar series. And then, of course, everybody knows Emily Marquez Doolin, our amazing executive director of Brook USA, and we actually have her, oh, I'm not muted, so in the screen down below. Say hi, Emily.
Hi, hello. Thank you for being here with us today.
And we also have Joelle and Hayden who just joined in too, so we did get another participant in. So we have Betsy, Joellen, Mary Kay, Melissa, and Nancy. So we already went through some of the housekeeping. Joellen, I know that you've been on one of our calls already for India, but everybody is muted. Also, we can all chat if you talk to the panelists or all attendees. We will be monitoring the questions as they come in, and we'll try to address them as quickly as possible. But if we are in the middle of the presentation, we are going to wait until we get towards the end of the presentation so that Fred will be able to address them more thoroughly. And then what I wanted to talk to you about too is who Fred is. So Fred is this wonderful man down below under the 4 Brook USA staff members here. And he is the regional director and CEO of Brook East Africa. Fred has actually been with Brook East Africa since its beginning in Kenya in 2001. Under his leadership, Brook East Africa now works in Kenya in 4 countries and helps 400,000 donkeys a year, which is very, very impressive. Brook USA has actually donated over $500,000 since 2016 to Brook East Africa. It's a huge feat, which has helped fund projects such as Women for Donkeys and the Donkey Hide Crisis. And actually, currently, we have another project that we're going on raising funds for, an all-terrain vehicle to support project visits across the extensive territory of Brook East Africa. The vehicle is paramount in providing quick access for site visits, where the donkey hide crisis has a major effect right now, and it's threatening the lives and the well-being of not only the animals, but also the people who are there. Now, with the addition of COVID-19, the vehicle is even more crucial to the team as they address the aftermath of the pandemic. We are currently $15,000 away from funding that vehicle, which is very exciting and definitely doable. And it is an immense honor to have Fred with us here today from Kenya for today's webinar. Thank you, Fred, and I will let you take it from here.
Thank you very much, Kendall. That's a huge introduction for me. Thank you very much. I'm definitely very, very much honored to be part of the webinar and really glad that it's actually giving, hashtag Giving Tuesday. Did you say that?
Mm-hmm.
Really brilliant, yeah, and really happy to be part of this. So I think I probably need to start by saying that Brook East Africa is actually as old as I have been in Brook myself. So started with the Brook, as you rightly said, in 2011, but Brook started funding programs in this country much earlier, in 2001. And it is after 10 years that then Brook realized that it was important to be able to have a close monitoring of its programs within this country, and to ensure that the funds were utilized for that purpose for which they were donated. And so we started the process of establishing Brook East Africa and got registered in 2012 as a regional NGO. And at that point, we were addressing very few animals. We were only able to cover just about 15,000 animals at that point. And Brook was mainly just working within Kenya as a country. And I should also add that when I joined, so for a whole year, I was actually the only staff that was working in Brook, and we were supporting 3 organizations. So Brook East Africa has always delivered its programs through partnership organizations. And the reason for that was the recognition that if you work with partners that are already in the locations where you need to be able to reach out to animals, then you have a much higher chance of building and growing sustainable programs rather than just doing it from a distance. So we have always worked with partners. At this point in time, we are working with 9 partners in total within the region. We are also working in 5 different countries. We're working in Kenya, where the office is based. We are also working in Tanzania. We are working in South Sudan. We are working in Somalia, and we are working in Uganda. The number of animals have now increased. I think if you could move to the next slide, we are now addressing quite a substantial number of equines. Last year, we actually were reaching about 431,000 donkeys and horses. Unfortunately, due to the donkey hide trade, which I'll talk about later, we lost quite a number of animals within the region. Kenya alone lost close to 500,000 donkeys due to donkey hide trade. And as a result, our reach also decreased to just slightly over 370,000 animals. Over the period that Brook has been operating, our budget has also gone up, just like the number of staff. We are now having 14 staff who are working full-time for the Brook, being able to monitor the operations we are having in the region, both at a program level, but also looking at fund utilization. We have therefore had an increase in our budget from originally $700,000. That was really the start of the program to what we are doing currently of close to 2.9 million Kenya shillings. And just an idea of if you haven't had a chance to be in Africa, or maybe if you have, just to give you an idea of, I think there's a map that shows exactly where East Africa and which countries we are working in. So that's the map of Africa. And within that, you can see the shaded area, but there's also to the very right, which is not shaded, but that is the Somalia, the one at the tip. So we have Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, South Sudan, and then Somalia. It's also important just to note that actually Brook also supports programs in Ethiopia. Ethiopia currently has the biggest number of equine animals in the continent. And I think at this point it's actually in the world, because China, that was leading in the population of equines, has consumed much of the animals. The gray part, so the shaded ones are where we are working. The gray places are actually other countries, except the one that is in the middle between Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, which is Lake Victoria. So we also have the second largest lake, I think, in the world, perhaps. Yeah. So it's a nice place to visit. Now, I think my focus really was going to be on the COVID-19 and what's happened in the region. So you may have seen this. There's a lot of information going around in East Africa, in the countries that we work in. We currently have a total of 1,869 confirmed cases, and that was by yesterday. The country that is most affected is actually Somalia, and it's partly because there's quite a bit of instability in Somalia that's been going on for quite a while. You may have read that in the papers. But equally, Kenya and Tanzania are also quite affected. You will see the numbers quite high. So we've had up to 490 confirmed cases by yesterday. Fortunately, we've also had quite some good recoveries, and within all these countries, we've had 77 deaths. Of course, these numbers in the bigger scheme of things may look quite small, but there have also been arguments that perhaps we are not doing as much testing as is going on in other countries. So it is possible that there are many cases that are out here, but they haven't been detected or they haven't been tested. But that is where we are. It is also important, I think, for me to note that out of all the countries, Tanzania, one of the countries we are working in, remains, continues to operate normally. So the government has not taken any steps in terms of either locking down areas or even having a curfew. So Tanzania and the work we do is also proceeding on normally. In Kenya, South Sudan, and Somalia, we have a dusk to dawn curfew. So work is still able to go on, but it's just during the day. Again, that may sound strange, but ordinarily when people work, people start quite early and sometimes they work up to very late in the night. We have had cases, for instance, where people have to go for water, and because it takes hours to travel some of these distances, someone would probably be back at 8 or 9, but now those are changing, so you have to be in your house by 7 o'clock in those 3 countries. Uganda, on the extreme end, has put a total lockdown, so there's really no work that is going on in Uganda at this point in time. And I think that all these are going to be reviewed in another 2 weeks by the government. In terms of how then COVID-19 has actually impacted in the work we do. So first of all, as Brook East Africa, most of our staff are now working from home, but many of us are still providing that remote support to the partner organization. So all the staff are based in Nairobi, but of course partners are based in many of the counties within the country and of course outside the country. And because of the nature of responses by different governments, the partners also continue with their work, as I said, except in Uganda. In most cases, they have also scaled down, and this is particularly in community work, because the whole idea of social distancing has made it difficult to bring communities together like we would previously do. So we have reduced on having community group meetings. So instead, we are having partners that are much more focused on individual meetings or very small groups, as may be in line with the guidelines by the government. And because of limitations in terms of movement, so there are areas that we are not able to cover, especially the deep rural areas, because it takes quite a while to get to those areas and go back. There's quite some low awareness about COVID-19 generally, and so one of the things we have also done is, in terms of our interventions, we are incorporating these guidelines in our work. So when the teams are out there, the partner staff, they will start by talking to the communities or the individuals about what they ought to do in order to ensure that they are safe, particularly around hand hygiene. We're also looking at wearing of face masks, which has been something that is mandatory in all the countries when you're in public places, and then also on social distancing. So we have just incorporated this. Of course, obviously, because of what is happening, people cannot work the way they previously used to. The number of hours have reduced. There is quite a reduction in terms of the income across the population. We know, of course, that now people are finding it much harder to be able to provide for themselves and for their families as well. And I think the challenge that has faced many people, and particularly those who are working with donkeys, is that if you have limited income, do you go spending it on your family, or do you need to spend it in addressing COVID-19, or even on your donkey? So there are places where people will tell you that they cannot afford to buy masks, or they cannot afford to buy sanitizer, because if they do that, then their family will go hungry. So they would rather, they would rather be able to address their needs within the family. And as a consequence, therefore, you will find that there are many communities that are taking quite a lot of risks in terms of how they socialize with their neighbors, in terms of even how they handle the animals within those communities. We have also seen that because of the reduced income, a lot of donkeys are actually working much, much more. So one of the guidelines is there has to be water in various places so that people can continue washing their hands. But I think the government hasn't recognized much that this water is not easily available. So there are communities that have still to travel very long distances to be able to get water. So you'll find people are now, instead of usually people putting 4 gallons on the donkey to be able to fetch water, you find cases where now they are carrying actually almost 6 gallons in one trip to be able to bring the water. And by the way, 1 gallon is 20 liters of water. So it's quite heavy. They will be working throughout, because people know that in the evening they have to stop working. So a lot of donkeys are working without rest. And then at the end of the day, they are not fed. People do not have money to be able to supplement their feed, so they're left to scavenge. Typical scenes we've seen is where actually donkeys are feeding on garbage in many of the market centers. In peri-urban centers, mostly, and small towns, because the youth that we've been working with have had previously to hire or to rent places to keep their donkeys. That's now no longer the case. Many of them cannot afford to do that. So we find cases where donkeys are now being abandoned, left to wander around at night. We've had cases where there's a lot of theft. Recently, we've also been told of cases where there are injuries where the neighbors actually cut the donkeys when they get them into their compounds, because that, you see, someone has probably some crops and the donkeys move. The donkeys do not know where the fence, reaches. So the donkeys will move around. They're trying to fend for themselves. So we've had cases of donkeys really being abused. And we're beginning to look at what really is the best alternative. Unfortunately, there's also limited veterinary service, because many of the vets, away from just not being able to travel long distances that they used to previously, there is increasing difficulty in getting the right drugs. Goods are not moving, so some of the vet shops are also lacking the right drugs and all that. So it's becoming dire in many of the communities that we are working in. I think there's a picture that shows, so if you see that picture, what that picture shows is the guy in the overall is actually a vet. So fortunately, when we had the curfew, he was already in the field, so he could not come back to Nairobi. And in the field where he is, we have a partner there. And so there are times when he's been called from time to time to attend to sick animals as well. Like in this case, the 2 donkeys that are being held by the owner were sick. So you'll see what he does initially, if you look at the previous picture, is first of all talking about the protection they need to take because of COVID-19. And there are places when he goes there, people do not have masks or people do not have gloves. So he's actually there, he's giving them, first of all, gloves, because we can get them cheaply as we do the bulk buying of medicine. So he gives those ones out. And then if they don't have the face masks, then he also has to give them. So there are places where we've been forced to at least give, especially the face mask, but also ensuring that people are washing their hands. So in this, he's actually showing, for instance, first of all, how do they put in the gloves before they work with the animals. And then now in the second picture, after he's done that, you will see that he's then treating the donkey that's not been feeling well. Interestingly, I think if you look at that picture, there's a tree there, and within that there's a water container. So you'll find in many rural areas, I don't know whether you can see a water container just around there. So you'll find that they have small containers of water. And we are encouraging that so that when people visit the homes, when there are children around, then they ensure that they're able to wash their hands. So you're both preaching animal welfare now and also people at the same time. So that's how the impact of COVID-19 has been. And we see this going on for some time mainly in the areas. Unfortunately, currently we have lockdowns within specific counties, but because the government would only do a total lockdown if these people can be fed. So we don't see that happening, which means we may have more cases of COVID-19 and that we will be dealing with, and yet they may not be able to take good care of the animals. Fortunately, again, through the lobbying with the veterinary services, they have now allowed vet service to be an essential service, which means that going forward, we will be able to see how we can facilitate vets to move around because of that exception that has been made by the government. And that is happening in Kenya. So we're also looking at how do we do that in the other regions that we operate so that the vets can be allowed, at least for them to move around to ensure that animal health will not deteriorate as a result of COVID-19. Now, having said that, I wanted to just talk slightly about the donkey hide trade. So this has been quite a crisis for the region for some time now. You may not know, but Kenya for a while has had 4 operational donkey slaughterhouses, and Tanzania has had 2 of them. Uganda, there's one that was built in the northern part of Uganda, but we were able to lobby quite early in time, and they have never allowed that slaughterhouse in Uganda to operate, even though we know it's been built, it's just ready to go. And so for the last couple of years, we've been really campaigning on the donkey hide, and the Brook USA has really supported us on this campaign to ensure that the donkey hide trade really is banned in this country. The 4 slaughterhouses had a capacity of slaughtering up to 1,000 donkeys per day. that was a huge number. And in fact, as a result, we know that in the last 1.5 years, over 500,000 donkeys were actually slaughtered. So it's a huge number. And if you look at 500,000, with one donkey taking care of about 7 people directly, we're talking about over close to 3.5 million people who've actually lost their livelihoods as a result of this trade. And due to the campaigns we were doing, a lot of people then started taking steps to protect their animals. And so with slaughterhouses getting it more difficult to get the numbers they wanted, we began having problems of smuggling of donkeys from other countries into Kenya, again for slaughter. But we continued with that. Unfortunately, in February, we had a pronouncement by the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture, Livestock and Fisheries that the donkey slaughter would be banned, and the slaughterhouses were then given 1 month to be able to transform their slaughterhouses into other things. And so at the end of the 1 month, they were then stopped completely through a gazette notice. What happened in this country, and indeed in the region, is that a minister can make a pronouncement, and even a president can do that. They can say that this, maybe this business must stop, but that will not have a force of the law until there's a gazette notice. So in this country, and the same applies to Tanzania, Uganda, and the rest of East Africa, that any pronouncement must then be embedded in law. And part of that embedding in law requires a gazette notice, which is then signed, done at the attorneys, and signed accordingly by the minister. So this is what happened. And so the minister, in exercising the powers that are conferred by the law, was able then to stop all the forced slaughterhouses from continuing the operations. Up until last week, unfortunately, they were still slaughtering. So we were able to put a lot of awareness in the media, able to work with the police to ensure that they stop. And I know the information I got in the last 2 days is that none of these now are slaughtering any donkeys. So we're very happy with that up to this point, and that is one of the things we are going to be monitoring to ensure that nothing actually continues in those forced slaughterhouses. Now, so that's a great achievement for Kenya. So we have the gazette notice, and I think what we will continue doing is to ensure that this gazette notice is implemented. Some of the businesses we have in this country, depending on who is running them, sometimes do funny businesses where even though the law says one thing, they would still go against the law to continue in their business. So that's why the implementation of this will be very important. Unfortunately, the 2 slaughterhouses in Tanzania still continue to operate. So one of the things that we are looking at very closely is how do we deal with the 2 slaughterhouses in Tanzania. And this is because if we don't do anything, they may be able to expand their capacity and actually start even getting donkeys being smuggled from the rest of the region into Tanzania. So that is becoming our focus. Fortunately, we also know that their licenses are coming for renewal at the end of June. So by June 31st, their licenses will have expired, and they are looking at how to renew them. And so we have started discussions with the government of Tanzania and lobbying them to ensure that there is non-renewal of those licenses. And of course, if we fail, we will have to do a very big campaign to also stop that from happening, because East Africa for some time has become the hub for donkey slaughter in the region. So that's really the issue with the donkey. So quite a big success. Again, many thanks to Brook USA and supporters for really funding this work. This meant so much to not just the organization, but to the communities that depend on these animals for their livelihoods. Unfortunately, the problems, I think it's like they say, yeah, misfortunes never come singly. So we've been dealing with this, and all of a sudden we also have other issues. So for instance, flooding is really going on. We've had too much rains in this country. As at this morning, we had lost about 164 people who are washed away, and a lot of people being displaced in this country and also in Tanzania. And just recently, we've had locust invasion also in various parts of Kenya and Uganda. And these, again, are causing further problems that we are monitoring these very closely and to see how do we get communities to actually bounce back from all these misfortunes. I think I'm very proud that we really have been supported on a number of things, and we've had very close communication with the group USA on this. I think Kendall already mentioned the project on women for donkeys in the introduction, that we've actually worked on this. Am I right, Kendall? You did talk about that. So this,
sorry, I was muted.
yeah. It's a project we are very proud of because it targets women, and in many of these communities, I mean, the belief is the same. You empower a lady in the house, you're actually empowering the whole of that family. And this has really been able to help us, not just to enable women to be able to take better care of their donkeys, but also to generate some income, whether through making harnesses or through being in their social groups. And so it builds even social esteem within the group members. And it's been very, very important. The community-based initiative as well, when the donkey theft was at its peak, we were able to get communities to look into various mechanisms to ensure that the donkey theft is reduced. There are people that we help to be able to build shelters for their donkeys. There are others who are actually able to buy dogs because dogs can be used almost as security in this country. So they did that. There are people who employed security guys so that they ensure that no one can come into their houses to be able to or their homes to be able to steal from them. And of course, the donkey crisis that I've just talked about. Now, one of the things that we are beginning to request, and I think that it's going very well, is really on the vehicle. You saw in my introduction that actually when we started in 2011, we had one small SUV. It's a small car that we have up to this point, but we got an additional vehicle in 2018, field vehicle to be able to help us. We have added from 3 to 9 partners. We have also expanded to 4 other countries, but we have remained with only 2 vehicles. And it's been quite a challenge to be able to support partners adequately in doing their work. We see much more need for this, especially as because of the COVID-19. I've just highlighted some of the consequences in terms of deteriorating animal health in many of these areas. We are going to have to support these communities very soon, and fortunately, we are getting the government to say the vets can continue working. So there's going to be really a need for us to be out there to be able to support the communities in animal health, but also the communities in terms of that the protection they need to put in place. And we can't do this if we are not able to move around. In fact, what is even making that sort of vehicle urgent is now the roads we have. So if you go to the next slide, this is interesting. Now, those pictures, those are not rivers, those are roads, those are rural access roads. I didn't name them just because when someone looks at them, you'd think, oh, that is how much rivers are looking like. No, those are actually roads, and some of them are that. And you can't use any, at least the one on the right, you can still drive a 4-wheel drive on that one and get to see the community. community. The one on the left is probably a bigger challenge, but these are the roads we are dealing with, and they're much worse now. And this is why our request for having a good four-wheel vehicle is really critical. So Emily, I know when you come, these are the roads we may be going through, so just to warn you. But we still have good ones, like what you see where the donkey owner, just the picture before, you will see that. That is not so bad, it's just wet, but you can see that you can drive through that. So those are the sort of roads that we are having, and that's why the request for the vehicle is really key for us.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's where we are in this. Again, really very special thanks to all the support you've been giving us. We really appreciate. But much more, the opportunity to be able to talk about what we are doing and how we are doing this. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to take all the questions you have.
Yeah. Hang on, I can't get my chat up.
Okay, so I see a question. It's actually coming from Melissa. It says, wow, how much would a suitable four-wheel drive truck cost? And I think, Amanda, you're actually better suited to answer that in dollars than Fred.
Yes.
Yeah, so in dollars, we'd be looking at about $100,000. The vehicle that Fred and I have talked about has an extra diesel tank, which is great for going far distances. It's well suited to bad terrain, and it is safe. And in addition, it is a Toyota, and the Toyota dealership is like right down the road from your office, which means that the maintenance would be easier. So that's approximately $100,000 is what it would cost to get them this vehicle that they've identified as best suited for their needs. Fred, correct me if I'm wrong on any of that.
And it fits more people.
You're right, Amanda.
Yes, it fits.
Yeah, so the vehicle, so the normal, the other vehicles actually take about 5 people, but this one is able to take up to 7, 8 people actually.
Is 8, yeah.
So put, you can still put goods on it. So it's quite, we can carry our vets and they can carry the tools plus a bit of partners and be able to visit the communities. So,
and for those of us in the US, one of the vehicles that they currently have that is absolutely not suited, it's a Nissan Rogue, which if you can imagine a Nissan Rogue on any of those roads, you can understand why maintenance has been a big struggle on that one.
My Hyundai Tucson that I had when I was younger floated away when we got flooded in Wellington after a tropical storm.
Oh my God.
That should put things in perspective. The same size.
Yes, the same size. Mary Kay Shaughnessy is asking what the biggest need Kenya has right now, Brook East Africa has right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think, so when you look at it, I mean, vehicle is one of the things we've talked about for quite a while. I mean, if we cannot support our vets on the ground, our community officers on the ground, if we cannot support partners, sometimes it's very difficult for them. And so this is why we are very keen at this point to get the vehicle. I think I'm very, very happy that some of the things we've done previously, we've received enough, quite some good support, especially the project I mentioned. And I think the key need now is really that.
So maybe we should clarify for the people on the phone right now, and I think Fred did a really good job at encapsulating that. The 3 programs, Brook USA's board is the one in charge of determining where the need is greatest when it comes to the countries we support. And we have identified 3 in Kenya. Obviously, empowering women to have a better life is part of it. We do know that when they are empowered, they're better animal owners. We have been supporting the Women for Donkeys program for 4 years. And I must say, and Fred, you forgot to say this, but that is a unique program of Brook USA. It is part of the overall strategy within the country, but we actually carved ourselves our little niche, and we call it Women for Donkeys. It does not have that name anywhere else in the universe, only at Brook USA. The second one, of course, is the vehicles, which is brand new. In reality, Fred needs 2 vehicles. We have made a commitment to 1, and we're $15,000 away from that. The third part that we're doing is the Donkey Hide Initiative, which we will continue to support through advocacy. But for those of you who are interested about what we're doing in the US, we will be launching a US-based Donkey Hide Initiative, because we've got to curtail the demand of the product so that the donkeys are safe. And what we have learned is that the US is the second largest consumer of EGL, which is the donkey hide product that is derived from the boiling of the hide. Brook USA, for the first time, is going to be taking an active stand in advocacy and lobbying, which will hopefully we will kick off this fall, and that will mean working with government, working with other animal welfare groups such as the Humane Society of the United States. And the third part is asking our supporters to raise their hand and say, put a stop to this. Mm-hmm. So for those of you who are supporters of Brook USA, I think that you will see a growth in our mission, and you will be very proud of what we're doing. And we certainly hope that you will join us, because if we can stop the demand or curtail the demand, we can certainly make a difference for Fred's work.
That's great, Emily. Apologies for not, I mean, I thought that is always a unique one. It was in my presentation, the Women for Donkeys. Yeah. It's one of the things we are really very proud of, touching on ladies directly. It's
absolutely
doing quite great, yeah. And I think I should mention that actually 3/4 of owners of donkeys in this country are women. This is why that is really
absolutely
important. We have very specific outcomes on them. And you look at the project that was tied to it around the protection from theft. Again, that was really on the women as well. So really great projects. Yeah.
So, Fred, one of the things about Women for Donkeys is kind of money-making, income-generating pieces of it. Can you talk about some of the things that the women in Women for Donkeys have done as income-generating pieces?
Yes, yeah. I mean, if I give 2 examples, so one is and in fact you can see even from the picture, you see that the women are using panniers on the donkeys, and these panniers are helping to be able to restrain those are the gallons I talked about, the containers. Now, a lot of those actually being made by the women themselves from sisal. So what they do is they get the sisal, make ropes out of them. Previously, those containers would be tied directly on the animal. They would cause a lot of wounds, and now they are making here we call them the gunias, but kind of the containers where it's a very nice padding on the back of the donkey, but they're also able to use those ropes to tie them nicely. You will see that band that goes round the neck, and these are just to ensure that the containers, as donkeys move, they are not also moving all over the place. So they help to prevent lesions or wounds on the animal. So these women groups are coming together. They make ropes. Out of these ropes, they are selling some, but they're also using some to make harnesses for their own animals. So they make some income, but they also improve on the condition of the animal. And the money they make out of that will take care of their families, but also will help them to take care of these animals. Incidentally, linked to the very second one, you will also find that because there are also a lot of these women that are actually widowed. So when they are in groups like this, they're able to come together and have what they're calling merry-go-round. So, each individual produces some money and they pull all that together and they can loan one individual maybe to take a kid to school or to do some development within the home. And what that has also done is to really, really raise their self-esteem. So you'll find that women are able to sit together, discuss even development issues within their own area, and take some of these issues to the leadership of those of the community or within that county. And they are going to be listened to. So they've ended up also having very strong groups as a result of these projects. And they continually look for alternative ways, because one of the things we have also said to them is, look, what can they do so that they reduce the burden on the donkeys? And so they also engage in other income generating activities. There are a few people who are doing farming as well. And that has really helped. This is why I think the Women for Donkeys project is so critical. It's something that we should have thought about, but maybe this is the right time to do it anyway. So it's really reaching out. We are very proud of some of these groups. They are much stronger, and we have seen them attracting more members within the communities to be part and parcel. And you will see, even from this picture, you can see that even the donkey looks much, much happier and much, much better in terms of its condition. So
that donkey looks great.
Yeah, that donkey does look great.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. And you would not imagine how many kilometers they have probably traveled to get to this water point, you know.
Right. So how many, did you translate that? How many were there? How many miles, Amanda? 6 miles a day?
Yeah, he said 10 kilometers, which is about 6.2. Yeah.
Yes.
Back and forth.
Yes, yeah. Back.
12 to 13 miles a day.
Yeah.
Yes. And remember, the project that we are doing with most of the women are actually in semi-arid areas. So there are areas where they have to travel long distances. Water is not easily available. And so this is one of the things. But now you also find that tied to a project like this, because you're already making ropes, so some of the training becomes so natural. Like, for instance, for this group, we've been very keen on handling, so that women can handle the donkeys without any fear. And when people are handling the animals well, it means they're not hitting them. They understand the animals, they have a very good relationship with the animal. And so such an animal, when they go back home, will be following them. So cases of theft have also gone down in this as a consequence of such a kind of project. Yeah.
I actually have one question,
yes,
Fred, because I think it's important to clarify. My understanding is that we have secured a ban on the 4 abattoirs in Kenya, and the Gazette has been issued, but the abattoirs have a period of time to challenge that decision.
Yes.
And with COVID-19 in the pipeline and the government closed, does it give them more time to plan, or does it benefit us that this time is closed? Because I believe they're still operating right now. Is that correct?
Yes. So what happened is, from the time of pronouncement, which was over a month ago, to the time of gazettement, they had 1 month to be able to take their case to court. And I should not be saying this, but part of what we did was to frustrate their efforts to take the case to court. Because if they had succeeded in getting this case to court before the gazettement, it would have been much more difficult, because then if the court says the status quo remains, the status quo at that point was the continued slaughtering of donkeys. But fortunately now the Gazette notice is out. We know, of course, that they are still planning to take this case, to challenge it in court. And for any law, that's always allowed. Anyone can go to court to challenge what they are not happy with. So we know they are still planning to challenge it. In fact, we were told that there is one of the owners was bragging that they've been able to mobilize close to $1 million to put into
wow.
this.
Wow.
And I should not be saying this, but generally the way the Chinese do business is not as straightforward as you find in other areas. So they are able to find ways of compromising the system. And so one of the things we are doing is really to mobilize the communities who are doing surveillance, and the partners are supporting them, so that this becomes a community issue. We are already working with the Ministry of Interior and National Coordination, where the police is part and parcel, to ensure that we have a good relationship. And what we are going to be tagging more on is actually the relationship we have with the ministry, with the police, and of course with the communities, so that should they succeed to take this to court, and of course, unfortunately, the courts now are opening up, and they're also allowing virtual kind of hearing of cases. So if that happens, at the very worst case, it would have to go to a hearing before determination can be made, because a court cannot just decide, let's stop this from going on, because it's already a law. A court cannot do a hearing. So that's the advantage we have at this point. And what we would then be doing is to look at how then do we get the communities, how do we support them to be enjoined in any case that may go for hearing. But at this point, we are a bit safe, just to the extent that any court case will have to work with the law that already exists.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah.
Joellen has a question, Amanda.
Joellen, yes, actually, Joellen, I can answer this too. Have we talked to any Toyota dealers here in the US about supporting the purchase of the truck, or talked to Toyota International about just donating it outright? We have looked into the cost of if we were to get one here in the US. The problem is purchasing one stateside and then shipping it over to Kenya would actually cost more money than it would to purchase one in Kenya. Toyotas are more expensive in Kenya than they are here in the US. Fred, do you want to speak to the choice of that?
Yes, maybe you can also tackle if we've talked to Toyota, maybe Toyota Kenya about
internationally. I know in the US that's been our struggle, is that if we were to get one donated or even purchase one at full cost or at a donated price, the cost of shipping it over to Kenya would be prohibitively expensive.
And once it gets there, it will probably end up in the wrong hands anyway.
Well, there's that problem as well.
Yeah, I mean, in this, most of the Toyota as a company has a number of dealers in this country, and it's not just, we have previously tried to approach many companies. We have tried Mitsubishi as well, because Mitsubishi is the one that sells Pajero. In fact, the other vehicle we have is a Pajero, which we managed to get it as a small, it was, I think, maybe a 10% discount for a vehicle that was 1 year old at that point. So that was the best we could get. It's very, very difficult to get any car dealers in this country donating any cars. It's just business. That's a big problem. But in terms of choice, so Toyotas, especially for the four-wheel drive, some of the most reliable vehicles around, and the dealers are many. So there is no, you hardly find issues of spare parts. If there's anything that breaks, it's very easy to get it fixed. And their maintenance, even though the purchase is quite costly, the maintenance with time is much lower than other vehicles. And that has been the reason why we thought the Toyota would be much better. And then it's also much more rugged, especially for the roads and the sort of vehicle we are choosing, because that's a rugged vehicle that can be able to take us to many of these places. And you will find in some of those rural areas, the non-governmental organizations that are operating there are mostly also using the Toyota. So it's very easy to get spares. It's also very easy to get people who understand those vehicles much, much better. And of course, for many of them, again, in terms of consumption, it's not as bad as other vehicles. So the reliability was a big part of of it, but also their versatility.
So I would like to clarify that I misunderstood Joellen's question, which was not getting it donated here and shipping it over. She was asking about going and speaking to dealerships or Toyota International about them supporting, which is certainly a great idea. We have some car dealerships that we have relationships with, and we will certainly go to them as we progress. I think our goal right now is to finish getting this first one funded and then move on to the second vehicle, which would then finish out their car fleet. And that's a wonderful idea, Joellen, and I appreciate that suggestion, and I will certainly follow up on that. So I'd be interested in knowing where the model that we want is manufactured. That's a good question, and I will find that out as well.
Yeah, but for the ones that are here, in most cases, they are manufactured in Japan and then shipped here.
Oh, they're manufactured in Japan.
Yes, yes.
Joellen, you beat me to the punch. I was just going to say, you volunteered, you recruited to help, but you already offered.
Oops.
There's another one.
Yes.
Mary Kay wants to know if there are any female vets in that part of Africa.
Yes, yes. There are vets, but not as many as male vets. So there are few female vets in the country. And also you would find that there could be more who are operating more as animal health assistants, or what usually would be called the paravets, so in rural areas, but they are not as many. What we have done is within our own system of animal health services, we have all the women vets as part and parcel of what we are doing, because especially when you're dealing with women, sometimes it's much easier when you send the women vet to be able to talk to them, to be able to follow up on some of these issues. So we have all the women vets and animal health assistant in the areas where we operate, actually part of those that we are dealing with, but they are not very many. And I think a lot of times also people will go directly to trying to work with the government rather than working in the rural areas. They don't find it very appealing, I think, and it could be for a number of reasons, maybe safety, it could also be payment and all that. Yeah, but there are a few. So Joe says some of the trucks are made in the US. I think that's true. The difference is in Kenya, we drive on the left. I think in the US, you drive on the right.
Exactly.
Called left-hand drive.
I didn't even think of that.
Yes, in this part, they're actually right-hand drive. So there are no vehicles in the US in this. I think closest you'd find that there are vehicles from Europe, UK particularly, because UK, we observe the same rules as in the UK. So we drive on the left just like theirs. But
Interesting.
Yeah.
We maybe have time for one more question. I don't want to keep anyone too long. Certainly we want to answer any questions that you all have though. So keep them coming if you have them. If you think of anything when all this is done, which is what I always do when a webinar is over, like half an hour later, I think, oh, I should ask that question. Just send it to me. Give me a call or shoot me an email, and we're happy to get any answers to any questions. Kendall, I know there's a little bit of end time housekeeping, right?
Just a little
Also,
bit.
these guys are cute, so I put them in there.
So actually what we wanted to do is talk a little bit more about what we are doing for #GivingTuesday. Like I said, you all being here is a wonderful example of what Giving Tuesday now is all about. It's coming together with giving, also being together and being, in unity. It just really exemplifies the generosity that's taking place not only in America, but around the world as well. And having Fred here, I think, is also a wonderful example of that. One of the things that we wanted to announce today, which we launched alongside of Giving Tuesday Now, is our virtual race. And our virtual race is a really fun and exciting way to get involved. You leave your footprint and you help a hoof print. So what you do is you sign up for our virtual race through charityfootprints.com/BrookeUSA, and we'll actually post that link in the chat as well. But you can sign up as an individual or you can create a team. It's $50 to register, and you get a shirt at the end of the 8-week challenge. And what you do is you just log your steps. So we actually have a virtual map, and that map starts in Lexington. It goes down into Florida. Then from Florida, we go into Central America. We go through the Caribbean into Africa. Then we go all the way over into India, where we stop. So we actually are covering all of our projects. And if you go to the website, you'll be able to see.
I don't know what I just did. I'm sorry.
You'll be able to see all of our logos over projects that we funded. So we would like to fill those steps. We also have a massive goal too for our COVID-19 response and recovery fund that we would like to raise $100,000 to be able to grant to projects not only that we are working with worldwide in the face of COVID-19 and the pandemic, but also here too in the United States. I know Emily has received a plethora of inquiries about us being able to support them. We currently, as of 12:30, had $27,220 raised thanks to Giving Tuesday Now, which is wonderful. Also because of all of our supporters, but the race is one of the really fun ways that you can get involved. You can raise funds peer-to-peer, and you can also just have a good time while getting fit. I mean, personally, I enjoy biking, so that counts. And also you can convert your steps for horseback riding, which is fun, or yoga and Pilates. And it's going to be a good time, and it's a good way to get us all together virtually. Fred, you can even join. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about too is actually on the next slide, we have our social media links here. So you'll see our Instagram, our Facebook, and our Twitter. Today for #GivingTuesdayNow, just make sure to go on, see that you're following all of our different social media pages. And one thing that you can do that all of us at Brooke USA are doing is we are actually creating a sign that will allow, perfect, Amanda, that will allow for us to post why we love Brooke USA. And we are putting that onto social media. I love it. So we're going to be posting that onto social media, and we urge that everybody else do the same as well. You can post on your Facebook, your Instagram, your Twitter. You can put in the story. Just make sure that you hashtag Giving Tuesday Now and tag us. And also just a big thank you to everyone for your support. We wouldn't be able to do what we do, especially in Brooke, East Africa, and all of the changes that have been made with Women for Donkeys, the Donkey Hide Crisis, and now with the vehicle program. So thank you to everyone. It wouldn't be possible without you. And thank you to Fred for being available for us. And we hope that we can host more of these in the future.
Yes.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Okay. I think
Of course.
it's just, thank you. Is really just providing an assured. I think first of all, maybe let me say that equines generally in this region are really critical in supporting people's livelihoods. For many families, if a donkey or a horse does not go to work, there may not be food on the table, or the family may not get access to medical services, or the family may not have their children going to school. And so your support is making a real difference. You are actually a game changer, and really on the group, I want to really express my very special thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fred.
Actually, I just remembered one more thing I wanted to bring up too. Sorry. We do also have our custom face masks, which were made by everythingequestrian.co. We'll put that link in there too. But since Fred was talking about the importance of the face masks and them being used in Kenya, and I know that so many of us here in the United States now, when we go out to go and do our grocery shopping or just being around people, we have been wearing face masks as well. Brooke USA has face masks. You can find them on the website that I posted in the chat, but also you can go directly to Everything Equestrian's website. They're $20 per mask, and $5 from each mask sale is actually benefiting Brooke USA and our COVID-19 response and recovery fund. So if you would like to sport Brook USA and have a fashionable mask, you can be fashionable with the cause and be safe.
Thank you all. If you have any, I will send out this video. You are welcome to pass it on to anyone who might be interested. I first have to figure out how to cut out the first 15 minutes, which is just me. And I have to learn how to do that part. You don't need 15 minutes of my face. So I will send that out when it is ready. If you have any questions or want to talk, have anything specific to ask Fred, maybe want to chat with him, please let me know and I can try to make something happen there. We're so grateful to all of you. And we have Mario Sapone from ASAP, our partner in Guatemala, who will be doing a webinar at 4 o'clock. If you'd like to join, we'd love to see you. And otherwise, thanks for what you do, and we look forward to talking to you all very soon.
Thank you.
I don't know how to turn this off.
Thank you very much.
Bye.